They told him it was over, again and again. That his arm was done, that he was too old, too broken, too tired. But Rich Hill didn't pitch for fame. He pitched for something deeper, for the love of the game and the memory of someone he lost. Before the surgeries, before the pain, before the headlines and the heartbreak, there was just a boy in Milton, Massachusetts, with a Red Sox cap too big for his head and a glove he wouldn't let go of. Rich Hill wasn't born with a rocket arm or a golden future. He was just a kid who loved baseball the way some kids love the stars, with quiet obsession. He'd spend hours throwing against the wall, imagining the roar of Fenway Park in his ears. Every summer night smelled like cut grass and sounded like the crack of a bat on the radio. He wasn't chasing fame. He didn't dream of millions. He dreamed of standing on that mound, under the lights, wearing the same uniform as his heroes. Baseball, to him, was poetry, and he was determined to write his verse, no matter how long it took. As Rich grew, so did the world's doubts. He wasn't the strongest, nor the fastest. Coaches looked past him. Scouts shrugged. But what they didn't see, what Rich felt, was the fire in his left arm and the patience in his heart. He didn't need the world to believe in him, not yet. He needed only one more chance. So he worked in silence, through high school fields that smelled of autumn leaves, through late nights of cold fingers and blistered palms, through college, where he finally earned their attention, not by yelling, not by showing off, but by lasting. He wasn't flashy, but he was steady. He wasn't perfect, but he was resilient. And that resilience earned him the call. In 2005, wearing a Cubs uniform, he stood on a major league mound. It was everything the boy in the backyard had dreamed of. But life, as it always does, had more to say. This wouldn't be a straight path. Not for Rich Hill. In baseball, they call it the bounce. One moment you're up, the next, forgotten. Rich's first seasons were rocky. Control problems, injuries, long bus rides back to the minors. Some nights, he'd sit alone in dim locker rooms, wrapping ice around his arm, wondering if the game still wanted him, wondering if it had ever truly wanted him. His ERA ballooned. Teams stopped calling. The phone went silent. For most, that's the end of the story. Fade to black. But not for Rich. Because somewhere deep inside, in the quiet part of his soul, he still believed. Not in the stats, not in the contracts, but in the pitch. In that pure moment when the ball left his hand and danced into the catcher's mitt. He believed that as long as he could throw, he wasn't done. Even if the world had already moved on. Most pitchers his age were retiring or fading into memory. Rich Hill was doing the opposite. Pitching in independent leagues, chasing shadows. On muddy fields with no cameras, no cheering fans, just silence and wind. He wasn't there for glory. He was there because the fire hadn't gone out. While others moved on, he kept returning to the bullpen. Tape on his fingers, sweat on his brow, hope in his chest. He reinvented himself, adjusted his grip, studied hitters, learned to turn craft into magic. And finally, one September, the Red Sox, his childhood team, gave him a call. A contract, a jersey, a chance. At 35 years old, most thought it was charity. But Rich stepped onto that mound and reminded the world, it's never too late when your soul still believes. Just as his story began to glow again, life changed its shape. Off the field, Rich and his wife Caitlin faced a storm no parent ever imagines. Their newborn son, Brooks, was born with a rare genetic condition. For 118 days, the Hill family lived inside a hospital room, holding on to hope, praying for miracles, whispering stories into tiny ears. Rich kept pitching, not because baseball mattered, but because it was the only place where pain could be silenced, even for a moment. But the day came when heaven called Brooks home, and everything stopped. In interviews, Rich didn't hide the sorrow. He didn't pretend to be okay. He spoke of grief the way he threw a curveball, with honesty and heartbreak and awe. His son may have left this world, but his presence never did. Brooks would become his compass, his reason, his flame. Every time Rich stepped onto the mound after that, it wasn't just him throwing a pitch. It was them, father and son. There, on the leather of his glove, was one name, Brooks. Etched in ink, carried with every inning, every breath, every stare into the catcher's signs. Reporters asked if he'd retire. Fans whispered, maybe he should. But Rich kept going. Not for the numbers, not for the applause, but because he had to. For Brooks. For himself. For every soul who ever lost something but chose to carry it with grace. In the years that followed, he became a symbol, not of dominance, but of endurance. A man who wore his pain like armor and turned tragedy into motion. Every pitch was a prayer. Every inning, a poem. And through it all, the boy with the Fenway Dream kept living inside the man with the broken heart. In a world obsessed with speed, Rich Hill whispered. While younger pitchers threw 100-mile-per-hour fastballs like thunderclaps, Rich offered a soft, slow curveball that floated like a feather and dropped like a dream. Hitters would swing and miss, not from power, but from poetry. That pitch, slow, elegant, almost disrespectful in modern baseball, became his signature. It was a lesson, too. You don't need to shout to be heard. You don't need to overpower to win. Sometimes, being different is the magic. His curveball told a story of a man who trusted patience, who danced with timing, who believed that control was more than speed. It wasn't just a pitch. It was a message to every person who ever felt out of place. Your rhythm matters. Your softness has strength. And your path, no matter how slow, still leads to greatness. From Boston to Oakland to LA, Rich became what baseball calls a journeyman. Never the face of a franchise, never the headline, but always the heartbeat of a team. He arrived quietly and left with respect. Teammates loved him, coaches trusted him, and fans, they felt something deeper. Not awe, but affection. Because Rich wasn't untouchable. He was human. When he smiled, it was real. When he failed, he owned it. When he triumphed, he shared the moment. His locker always held more than a uniform. It held the weight of his story. And yet, every city brought a new chapter. At every ballpark, he left behind memories. Not of perfection, but of persistence. And slowly, the league realized Rich Hill wasn't fading. He was rising, in his own way, on his own terms. One evening, under a gray sky, Rich stood on the mound as rain began to fall. It wasn't a playoff game. It wasn't even televised nationally. But something about that moment was holy. The drizzle painted his jersey. The crowd quieted. And Rich, 40 years old, scarred, tired, smiled. Because he knew something the rest of us forget. Sometimes, just being there is the victory. Standing on your feet when life has knocked you down a dozen times. Showing up, heart open, even when you've been broken. That night, he pitched 6 perfect innings. Not because he had to prove anything, but because he still could. And when he walked off the field, soaked in rain and memory, the crowd stood. Not for a superstar, but for a survivor. Behind the man in uniform was a love story that carried him through. Caitlin, his wife, had been there through the darkest hours, the surgeries, the silences, the hospital nights. When Rich pitched, it was her strength that echoed through the seams of the ball. They didn't chase spotlight. They chased peace. Together, they started a foundation in honor of Brooks. Helping children, lifting families, giving hope, quietly, powerfully. Rich wasn't trying to be a hero. He was just trying to give back. Because he knew pain. He knew helplessness. And he knew that sometimes, all someone needs is a little light in the dark. Off the field, Rich and Caitlin became that light for others. A reminder that love, when anchored in loss, can still be beautiful. In a sport obsessed with youth, Rich Hill became an anomaly. Still pitching into his 40s. Still tricking batters half his age. Still walking slowly to the mound with his cap low and glove high. They called him ageless. A miracle. But Rich just smiled. Because he knew the truth. It wasn't magic. It was miles. It was tears. It was years of showing up when no one was watching. Of rebuilding what broke. of honoring a son's memory with every throw. Baseball hadn't forgotten him. Time hadn't beaten him, and the story wasn't over. Because every time he stood on that mound, he rewrote the ending. Not with speed, not with power, but with the soft, perfect spin of a curveball and a heart that refused to give up. One afternoon, a young pitcher sat in the dugout, wide-eyed, watching Rich warm up. "He's still doing this," the rookie whispered. A veteran nodded. "Not just doing it, teaching it." Because by now, Rich had become more than a player. He was a bridge between generations, between eras. His style was old school, his spirit timeless. Young pitchers came to him not for mechanics, but for mindset. "How do you stay ready when no one believes in you?" they asked. And Rich, always humble, always soft-spoken, would just smile and say, "Because I still love it." That love was contagious. In every clubhouse, Rich brought calm. In every bullpen, he was the first to encourage. And when he pitched, the other players watched. Not because he was the fastest, but because he was the truest. Baseball, through him, remembered its heart. Before every game, Rich would touch the name Brooks on his glove. It wasn't ritual, it was remembrance. A father's silent prayer. No words, just breath and presence. The world knew Rich as a competitor, but his family knew him as a man who never let grief harden him. He carried his loss not like a burden, but like a light, a reminder to live with intention, to throw with purpose, to love without fear. And fans began to feel it too. In interviews, letters poured in, from grieving parents, from dreamers, from people who saw in him the strength to go on. Because Rich wasn't just surviving, he was transforming, turning pain into presence, loss into legacy. His story, whispered across stadiums, became a lullaby for the brokenhearted. And every pitch, a love letter to his son. Usually, the curtain falls, the cleats are hung, the jersey framed. But Rich kept going, past 41, past doubt, past logic. Even when the world said, "Enough," he laced up. And the beautiful part? He didn't stay for records. He stayed for the rhythm, the morning stretches, the smell of pine tar, the quiet focus of the bullpen. These weren't routines, they were rituals, a sacred rhythm of life. And when asked why he never stopped, Rich simply said, "Because I still can." There was no grand finale, no last game announcement, just inning after inning of grace. And maybe that's how true legends leave, not with fireworks, but with whispers, not with applause, but with peace. One night, under a fading summer sky, Rich stood alone on the field. The lights were dim. The crowd had gone. Just him, the mound, and the moon. He looked up, exhaled, and smiled, because he knew he had given all he had, not just to baseball, but to life, to grief, to love, to memory. And in return, the game had held him gently, like a soft glove around a worn ball. Rich Hill, the boy with the dream, the man with the heart, had made his mark, not by dominating, but by enduring. And somewhere, far above, a little boy named Brooks was probably watching, proud, laughing, and maybe, just maybe, tossing a curveball back. Rich Hill's story isn't about winning trophies. It's about winning time, stealing moments from fate, and making them matter. He taught us that age is not defeat, that sorrow can become strength, that love never truly leaves, and that even in silence, a man can roar. So tonight, if you find yourself doubting your path, think of Rich, the boy who dreamed, the father who grieved, the man who pitched beyond time. His legacy is not measured in strikeouts, but in souls moved, in hearts lifted, in stories that lull us to sleep and wake us up with hope. Sleep well, and never stop believing in your next pitch.
Thank you. Thank you. Professor Vaughn. What kept him going would overlook him. He won't point to fame or fortune. He won't. Thank you. Thank you. Professor Vaughn. What kept him going would overlook him. He won't point to fame or fortune. He won't. Thank you. Thank you. Professor Mound, what kept him going would overlook him. He won't point to fame or fortune. He won't. Thank you. Thank you. Professor Mound, what kept him going would overlook him. He won't point to fame or fortune. He won't. Thank you. Thank you. Professor Vaughn, what kept him going would overlook him. He won't point to fame or fortune. He won't. Thank you. Thank you. Professor Vaughn, what kept him going would overlook him. He won't point to fame or fortune. He won't. Thank you. Thank you. Professor Mound, what kept him going would overlook him. He won't point to fame or fortune. He won't.